schools. Fox 45 News makes parents' safety concerns heard and the decision that could shape how one of these cases plays out in the city.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 4.
In a city in crisis right now, workers were out distributing water at several sites today as a huge patch of West and Southwest Baltimore and Southwest Baltimore County remain under a boil water advisory.
The Department of Public Works learned of a potential E. coli outbreak yesterday, which is affecting thousands of residents and dozens of schools and businesses. Good afternoon. I'm Maxine Stryker.
And I'm Kai Jackson. Now, DPW says it detected contaminants like E. coli in 3 locations in West Baltimore.
Amy Simpson joins us live now with the latest on the situation. Amy?
Yeah, Maxine, Kai, still no word tonight on how a bacteria like E. coli got into the water supply at a fire station and 2 police facilities in West Baltimore. But again, water distribution did continue today for a second day. 3 gallons per household were handed out at 3 sites in the city and the county today. 2 of those sites in the city, a third in Lansdowne, which is in Southwest Baltimore County. Water at that Lansdowne location arrived at noon, an hour after distribution was scheduled to get underway by DPW crews this morning. There was a line of about 24 people waiting for those gallons of water, and some we spoke to still have questions about the possible contaminants and the city's response to this crisis.
After all, it is end of the Labor Day weekend, and I understand that. But this should take precedence over anything. How long is this going to take place? Do we know?
Well, Amy, some have been critical of how and when city leadership responded to this crisis. What are you learning from the mayor and the Department of Public Works tonight?
Yes, so today I did question both Mayor Brandon Scott's office and the Department of Public Works about when this bacteria was first detected, when retesting occurred versus when the public was made aware of the situation. According to a press conference late last evening by the mayor and city leadership, the possibility of contaminants was first detected during DPW's routine water testing last Friday, September 2nd. The city says it then retested that specimen on Saturday, September 3rd to confirm. But right now, we do not know when that second set of results came back to confirm the bacteria found in the water. And it wasn't until yesterday morning around 7:45 a.m. when news broke of total coliform and E. coli found in those 3 locations in West Baltimore. And as of this afternoon, my questions to both city leadership, Mayor Brandon Scott, and the Department of Public Works about the timeline of this testing and the city's response to this, those questions have not been answered. Reporting live tonight, Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
Amy, thank you. Now, health officials say if you are in the affected area, you should boil water for at least a minute and get rid of any stored water that you have in your home. It's safe to wash your clothes and take a shower if you live in the area. But if you have drank any water recently, experts say you should watch out for potential symptoms. Now, in response to the contaminated water, Baltimore City schools say that they are preparing meals off-site at the 6 schools on the screen. Hand sanitizer and bottled water will be provided for staff and students at all of these schools. According to City Schools' website, these precautions will be in place until the issue is resolved.
That brings us to our question of the day. Did Baltimore city leaders botch the initial E. coli contamination response? So far, 100% of those who have voted say yes. We want to hear from you. You can participate in our poll by going to foxbaltimore.com/vote. Excuse me. Now, coming up in 30 minutes, Dr. Theodore Bailey, GBMC's chief infectious disease expert, joins us live to answer all of your questions about E. coli, including the symptoms, how it spreads, and how you can be sure to keep your family safe. Meanwhile, the Mervo community still in mourning following the tragic loss of a young life. At 17-year-old Jeremiah Brogdon was gunned down in his high school parking lot just minutes after class let out on Friday. Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor joins us live outside the high school as students make their return today. Rebecca?
Yeah, Maxine, students returned to Mervo High School today, but not for classes. Right now, school officials saying that the focus needs to be on counseling. And as you can see in this video taken from earlier today, the walk in and out of the building was visibly somber for students and staff. Slowly easing back into things, school officials are calling it a recovery week. Students were asked but not required to attend lunch, followed by counseling sessions this afternoon. Tomorrow, the start of classes will be staggered depending on grade level, and by Thursday, the school's normal schedule will resume. Meanwhile, we're learning more about the victim, his football coach describing Jeremiah as a good kid and exceptional athlete.
We've really been focusing a lot on sticking together. We've been focusing a lot on praying for his family, Jeremiah's family. We've been talking about the importance of just how precious life is.
And along with a focus on counseling in the classroom this week, the school is also hosting a virtual family and community meeting this evening. For those interested in attending, a link can be found in this story on our website at FOX45.com.
And Rebecca, what's the latest update on the gunman this evening?
Well, Maxine, so far we know that gunman, also a 17-year-old, they attended a different high school and have been arrested and charged with first-degree murder. They're also being held without bond. Reporting live outside of Mervo High School, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Taking care of 600 people, 700 maybe this year shot, is emotionally exhausting. It's taxing. It's discouraging. It's everything you can imagine, but you actually can't imagine if you don't do it.
Dr. Thomas Scalia, the lead surgeon at Shock Trauma, talks about the toll the city's gun violence has on the people tasked with saving lives. Dr. Scalia will lead a new initiative to help the city get a grip on the violence that's held Baltimore so tight for years. It's part of a growing trend of the community stepping up to keep violence down. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost is live to explain more. Mackenzie?
Yeah, Kai, experts warn that Baltimore City could be on track to see the deadliest year on records. We're seeing more teens and young people get involved in the violence, and now community members are being asked to step up to try and find solutions. This as we're seeing government and policymaking not really curbing this violent trend. Baltimore's Labor Day winding down with another shooting. A 13-year-old shot multiple times. The police say he is expected to survive. Another family impacted by Baltimore's bloodshed. Just one of more than 500 people in the city this year who have been shot but surviving. The area's premier trauma center, Shock Trauma, announcing a new initiative with the University of Maryland Law School, Med School, and social work programs led by Dr. Thomas Scalia.
I can almost tell you the number of steps because I've had to do it way too many times. This is nuts. This is nuts. The fact that we are doing this many times in this city is just crazy.
In Prince George's County, the county executive Angela Also Brooks calling for families to step up.
Juvenile arrests have more than doubled armed and dangerous children.
As more and more teens commit crimes.
These kids don't just need a hug, they also need to be held accountable. I know this isn't the popular thing to say, but the truth of the matter is, it's a fair question. Where are their parents? Where are the aunties, where are the uncles and other family members who are responsible for them?
And it's not just some leaders looking to the families to help turn the page on this violent chapter.
It's not the city's job. That occurs in the family.
Pastor P.M. Smith calling for parents to invest more in their families.
Conflict resolution is first learned in the home.
Mayor Brandon Scott campaigning on the promise of reducing violence.
I will aim to reduce homicides by 15% each year in my term, getting us below 300 homicides in my first year.
But that promise broken. And now he too is turning to the community for answers. But another activist says that is a double-edged sword.
People get up, get out, get involved. Stop waiting for somebody to come in and fix the problem.
As bullets fly, carjackings and assaults rise, and police investigate, the reality for many remains bleak. I'm scared.
I don't feel safe here at all.
Highlighting the importance of finding a solution to a gun violence problem that's already claimed the lives of nearly 250 people this year in Baltimore City alone.
We're really pretty good at taking care of sick patients. But when they get to the point where they either have a lethal anatomic injury or they come in with their heart no longer beating, we're out of the game. There's nothing we can do to fix that problem. The only fix for that problem is to not have it happen.
Now, this new Center for Violence Prevention is launching after the programs did receive a grant from the communities, and the goal is to develop policies as well as educational plans to try and prevent gun violence as well as trauma impacting not just Baltimore City, but the surrounding communities as well. Live in Baltimore, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Well, new this afternoon, we're learning the 14-year-old boy shot and killed Friday night in Pikesville, not far from Milford Mill Academy, was a freshman student at the school. He was killed and another juvenile was injured after the school's football game, and the violence has students and parents rattled. The start of the school year in Baltimore County was marked by tragedy at one Pikesville high school.
I feel like it's just so messed up. It's just so messed up.
Police say Friday night, as the football game came to an end at Milford Mill Academy, a 14-year-old boy was shot and killed around the corner from the high school. Another juvenile was injured.
This 14-year-old boy just lost his life after a game. It's just it just don't make no sense. It don't make no sense whatsoever.
Baltimore County Public Schools confirming Tuesday the 14-year-old was a freshman student at Milford Mill.
Not just seeing police just, pressing down on his body, trying to bring him back, and it was a lot of children.
This parent, who doesn't want to be identified, tells us she has 2 students at the high school.
I'm just speechless by everything that happened.
A spokesperson for Baltimore County Schools says this email was sent out Sunday night to parents, informing them of the loss of a student and letting them know counselors and a traumatic loss team would be available to students today.
That could have been my little brother.
He's very young. He had his whole life.
For now, this mother worries about her children's safety as the new school year is just getting underway.
I'm afraid to send my 14-year-old back to school this week coming up.
Police say they will identify the victim sometime today. We are still waiting on that information. We also asked police for the incident report to see what led up to this shooting. They tell us they are not releasing it at this time.
Well, technology is making learning more convenient for students, but it's also exposing them to new dangers. Coming up, how one federal law enforcement agent says you can keep your family safe.
President Biden has a new name for his political opponents as he and former President Trump hit the campaign trail. Who has an advantage in the midterm fight for control of Congress? I'm Scott Thuman in Washington with a look.
And a sticky day with lots of rain this morning. Showers, though, have been tapering, but there still could be a spot storm for any of you heading on home on this first commute home of the shortened work week. I'm going to let you know how much more rain's in the forecast, though, day by day in my Weather Authority forecast.
Fox 45 News, winner of 17 2022 Regional Emmy Awards, more than all other Baltimore news stations combined.
In your Vote 2022 coverage, we're taking a live look at the U.S. Capitol as senators head back to work Tuesday for one final legislative push before the midterm elections. They'll tackle, among other things, a new bill keeping the federal government funded. And they will also work on an energy bill that Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia demanded as a condition for supporting the Democrats' recently passed climate bill. With November a couple of months away, Democrats are hoping to get other bills rolling as well, like codifying same-sex marriage, which has garnered some support.
Well, we have just reached a critical time in election season, post-Labor Day politics. That's when the campaigns traditionally heat up and we enter that mad dash towards midterm elections.
That's right. Few voices carry as much weight these days as the president and his predecessor. Sinclair's chief political correspondent Scott Thuman looks at what they're doing to give their parties an advantage.
Ladies and gentlemen, President Joe Biden.
On stage, in the limelight, and under pressure, President Biden using his bully pulpit to frame his political enemies as dangerous.
It's clear which way the new MAGA Republicans are. They're extreme, and democracy is really at stake.
And giving them new labels.
The Trumpies. These MAGA Republicans in Congress are coming for your Social Security as well.
The noticeable pivot for Biden began last month, calling them semi-fascist and calling on voters to counter them this November. Trump, too, on the trail.
Republicans in the MAGA movement are not the ones trying to undermine our democracy. We are the ones trying to save our democracy.
Politico's midterm forecast documents the urgency. The Senate had leaned Republican. Now they call it a toss-up, while still saying it's likely Republicans will take the House. So have Biden, Trump, and others distanced themselves from the middle at times to appease the fringes of their party, and by design, ramped up the rhetoric.
Let him go.
The president this weekend name-calling a heckler.
No, don't let him go. Look, everybody's entitled to be an idiot.
Though still well short of some past Trump reactions.
Like to punch him in the face, I'll tell you.
And while they're both taking shots at the other side, seldom do they call out their own radical members for escalating matters via the most extreme actions or damaging demonstrations. In Washington, I'm Scott Thuman.
Governor Larry Hogan is endorsing Republican candidate for Comptroller Barry Glassman. The current Harford County executive was a state delegate and state senator before winning his current seat. Hogan has declined to endorse others within his party, including candidate for Governor Dan Cox and candidate for Attorney General.
All right, looking at our weather today, we had some rain out there. The sun was like playing this little peekaboo thing today.
I kind of liked it.
Yeah, it was a little bit of everything today. A deluge for some folks this morning. Really depended on where you were. Down south and east of the city, less than an inch of rain. But from the Beltway north and west, 2 to 4 inches of rain locally. So really getting hammered. Actually had some flood warnings. Then the sun came out. Now we've got a couple of pop-up showers. That same storm system, although we're not kind of on the wet side of it anymore, is going to still provide for some unsettled weather for probably the next couple of days, right around Cockeysville, Towson. You see there right around the I-70 marker as it meets up with the Beltway. There are a few showers. Those go all the way north toward Lancaster as well as into Reading, Pennsylvania. Let's go on a wider view and I can kind of give you a better overall shot here of what's going on. You can see again some of the showers along the spine of the Appalachians. Then we go on the national view and you'll get an even better picture of the full breadth of the system as we put it in motion. There's rain from this morning kind of spiraling off to the north and the northeast. And then on the back side here, there's still what you see was showers and thunderstorms, a little less numerous into the northern Appalachians just out to our west. But nonetheless, that instability is going to be getting involved with us the next couple of days. So kind of showery weather, maybe a couple of thunderstorms in the afternoon. As I mentioned, this was that big initial burst of rain this morning. Some of these totals up above 4 inches north and east of Green Valley over extreme southern portions of Carroll County and northwestern Howard County. And that trailed all the way north of Baltimore in the city, even about 1 to 2 inches of rain. as this kind of complex storm system takes one batch of moisture, pushes it east this morning into the midday, and now we're in kind of, again, some showery regime. And that will continue for tomorrow as well. And we'll get on the somewhat cooler side of this as the winds start switching more so west and eventually northwesterly. And this system is just slung out north and west of us. Now, the good news for tomorrow is that high, soupy humidity that we've seen for today is going to start to get evicted as gradually we try to get some drier, cooler air in here. For now, though, it stays showery, and it looks like that's how it remains into tomorrow as well. Right now, 81 degrees, but boy, it is sticky. Dew point at 70, so it's steamy with those popcorn clouds in the background. You see some of the gray skies of the building cumulus with some of those showers. Winds out of the east-northeast at about 10 miles an hour on the Mile 1000 camp. Temperatures in the 80s where the sun came out, north and east. They're just getting done with the rain, so they're only in the low and mid 70s. And then south and west, we're in the low to mid 80s. Now, it's that air that's up there toward Erie, Pennsylvania, as well as Pittsburgh in the 70s that we're going to get involved with for tomorrow. So it could cool down a couple of degrees over what we saw today. Now, out in the tropics, Danielle, looks like that's going to end up over the open ocean. There's also Earl. That's another one that's going to probably just be a fish storm. Could be a major hurricane, though. May scrape close by Bermuda. And then there's also a medium chance of development in the central portion of the Atlantic and a low chance coming off the coast of Africa. So lots to watch here next several days. Now, again, those popcorn showers into this evening, they're about 9, 10 o'clock. Those diminish as they move in overnight. And then for tomorrow, kind of a showery and somewhat cooler day, highs in the 70s. Early shower on Thursday, then gorgeous weather into the first half of the weekend, gets more unsettled by Sunday.
First responders found a body after responding to a fire in West Baltimore. Why they say this death is suspicious. And Carroll County district leaders are dealing with a teacher shortage, how they're forging forward with the school year despite those challenges. Making headlines now, social media can play a big role in the back-to-school season, but child predators know this as well. Ever-evolving technology, gaming sites, and social platforms are making it harder to keep kids safe online. Savannah Welch from our Sinclair sister station in Portland speaks with law enforcement leaders about what families should watch for.
It used to be that the predators would go to the local playground. Well, now they're going to the local online gaming platforms, and then they'll go into these popular game spaces and meet other kids on there.
Keeping kids safe online may seem like an easy task, but with ever-evolving apps and gaming sites, it's easier said than done. I asked Robert Hammer with Homeland Security Investigations what they're seeing. Are there new ways or other ways that predators are finding kids online? Is this something that, you're looking out for?
We see things from innocuous apps all the way to things that online gaming platforms. You think you're playing Minecraft and it's a harmless game, but yet there's a chat function available to it. And then the predators know this, and they take advantage of these little insertion points.
Hammer recommends parents have protections in place. He says adding phone restrictions, switching social media profiles to private, and removing devices from the room at night are just several safeguards.
Educating them before they hit approve or add a friend or anything like that. Make sure they understand that predators are out there creating fake profiles to look like friends, to look like young people in high schools, but yet they're much older individuals that are designed to trick kids into adding them into their social networks.
The predator grooming process often starts with building trust, eventually asking for photos and personal information. Kids can then get locked into sextortion, and it's more common than you'd think.
Every law enforcement agency in this country could do nothing but child exploitation leads, and we would still have more leads than we know what to do with. It's a sad reality that by the thousands, there are leads coming out from various providers.
Hammer says it can be difficult to rescue kids from these situations when they're already in them. So having open conversations keeps your kids informed and safe when online.
Dads marched their kids to school in Harford County. Why they decided to make a statement on the first day of classes. And students in Uvalde are returning to school for the first time since the massacre, which claimed 21 lives. How families are handling this emotional day. A breaking news update now at 4:30. Thanks so much for staying with us. I'm Maxine Stryker.
And I'm Kai Jackson. A homicide investigation is underway in West Baltimore following a house fire this morning. Now, that fire was reported just after 7:30 in the area of North Monroe Street and Riggs Avenue. Now, that's near the Sandtown Winchester neighborhood. The fire department says when the fire was put out, they found a body of an adult woman. Now, here's what the assistant chief said when he arrived.
Units gained entrance into the dwelling, came upon a fire in a bedroom. It was there that they extinguished the fire that was contained to the one room and found a victim within the room. This victim was deceased at the time.
The woman's cause of death is still pending.
And new information tonight following a shooting last week in South Baltimore, which rattled residents and a nearby school. That shooting happened inside the Light Street Animal Hospital. Police say the suspect, 66-year-old Bobby Trillo from Baltimore, got into an argument with his brother, who is a veterinarian at that hospital. They accuse him of shooting him in the leg. He later barricaded himself and surrendered after a 3-hour standoff and is facing second-degree attempted murder charges.
On the national front, the Memphis jogger who was abducted and forced into an SUV last week has been found dead. Officials in Tennessee positively identified the body of 34-year-old schoolteacher Eliza Fletcher. A 38-year-old man is charged with her murder. He was arraigned in court today. Police still have no motive in the case. Fletcher was abducted near the University of Memphis Friday. You can be the first to know about breaking news by signing up for News on the Go. Go to foxbaltimore.com and click on Mobile Alert Sign Up under the Station tab. Concerns about E. coli contamination in Baltimore has spread to the county.
The boil water advisory issued for southwest Baltimore has been extended to parts of Baltimore County. The affected areas now include places like Arbutus, Halethorpe, and Lansdowne. The city revealed yesterday that E. coli has been found in the water supply in West Baltimore. So leaders are encouraging residents in the areas you see circled on your screen to boil their water for at least 1 minute before drinking or even brushing your teeth.
Joining us live right now is Dr. Theodore Bailey. He's the chief of GBMC's Infectious Disease Department. Dr. Bailey, thank you for joining us.
Sure. Happy to help.
Yeah, well, first we're talking about E. coli. Can you give our viewers a thumbnail sketch? What is E. coli and how dangerous is it?
Well, E. coli is a bacteria, and when we talk about something like traveler's diarrhea, it's the most common bacterial cause of diarrhea, of a bacterial diarrhea. And what we're seeing is high levels of it in public water supplies, and they're increasing the range over which we're seeing it. That's a bacteria that, although it's normal in our body, you know, there's certain versions of it ingested may lead to a variety of infections and illnesses, mostly with diarrhea as the symptom.
And how concerned should residents be who live in these affected areas?
They should take the boil order completely seriously. You know, this is something that the water is shown to have a higher than safe level. I mean, it should not have this bacteria in it. It would not be safe to drink it. There is a way to get rid of the bacteria, and that's the boil. But it has to really be boiled. It's not heated up for a minute. It's get it to boiling and then let it boil. And that will kill the bacteria and render it safe once it's cooled back down again. But also, public health officials are supplying pure water. So there's also access to water that's going to be brought to these areas.
Dr. Bailey, so E. coli obviously can be dangerous, if not deadly. If someone comes in to see you as a physician, how do doctors treat someone who has a severe case of E. coli, and how dangerous can it be?
Well, in some cases, we would provide supportive care. We would provide excess fluids, IV fluids even, to try to catch up with the diarrhea that they're having. In some cases, antibiotics are necessary and can kill the E. coli. That's doable. It's not always necessary, but evaluation, if you have symptoms, would be essential to find out how severe your case is and what would be the best approach to it. So just kind of toughing it out would not be the right approach. You really would want to seek care.
So the main symptom that people should be looking out for is diarrhea?
It can be diarrhea, it could be fever. Some of the E. coli can cause blood in the stool as well. So if you're feeling fevers, GI symptoms, diarrhea, any one of these or all of them, you should seek medical attention.
All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us this afternoon.
Well,
Time now for our question of the day. Did Baltimore city leaders possibly botch the initial E. coli contamination response? Right now, 98% of those who voted say yes. We want to hear from you. You can participate in our poll by going to foxbaltimore.com/vote. We'll check in on the poll again in 30 minutes. And the Baltimore Fraternal Order of Police is speaking out now about the city's handling of last weekend's cycling classic. Police were forced to cancel time off and work overtime with very little notice. The FOP says the event has been planned for more than a year and the city should have done better. Maury Richards, former chief of police for Martinsburg, West Virginia, agrees and says this could lead to problems for everyone down the road.
Police officers are human beings. They only work so much. They're dedicated, give it all they got. But at a certain point, days off, canceled, forced overtime, people can only do so much. And, that results in a lack of morale. Officers get cynical. They can't do their job right. It's hard to make good decisions. And not only do these officers and their families suffer, but as you said, the citizens as well, because they're not getting 100% from their department.
The fire department sharing the concerns about forced overtime. Both departments say they're severely understaffed.
Students in Carroll County returned to school today. System leaders say that they are facing a teacher shortage. In fact, as of last Friday, they still had 8 classroom vacancies.
I hope we keep filling the spots. We don't see it as an issue in school today. We're close enough to full to keep the students, smaller classes and all teachers in classes.
Well, school system leaders say every student had a teacher or a permanent sub today for the first day. They say they are hosting job fairs, increasing their advertising and talking with students who've expressed interest in becoming teachers in order to fill those vacancies. In Harford County, many students kicked off their first day by walking to school with a male role model.
It's all part of the annual Million Father March. Shannon Lilly spoke with one participant at Aberdeen High School about why they decided to take part.
Well, a wet start to the first day of school, but excitement as kids made their way through these doors, some even walking through the rain to do it. Take a look.
We're walking to our first day of kindergarten.
Yeah, that's the sea of families marching from Aberdeen High School to Bakerfield Elementary School this morning for the Million Father March. The whole goal of this annual march is to encourage dads, brothers, uncles, grandfathers, and all male role models to be more involved with their kids' elementary school. And the turnout, despite the rain, was big.
I'm always here to help him and be here with whatever he wants to do.
Rain or shine, we love our kids, and that's what it is.
Of course, the start of the school year here in Harford County hasn't been without challenges. The district has hired more than 300 new staff to deal with the teaching shortages. But Superintendent Dr. Sean Bolson tells me they are starting the school year with no teacher vacancies, which means every classroom has a teacher.
Very simple. We're going to take care of your kids and we're going to have a great year. We have a lot of work to do in academics, so we need their help at home with that. But beyond that, we're just excited to get started.
Now, Dr. Bolson does say they are still dealing with a few support staff vacancies and bus driver vacancies. And so earlier he did ask for patience from parents as they do try to work through any kinks. Reporting from Bakerfield Elementary School, I'm Shannon Lilly, Fox 45 News.
Fox 45 is your back-to-school headquarters, and we're committed to investigating any problems your kids may run into this year, from teacher shortages to a lack of bus drivers. You can call our news tip line at 410-467-5595. You can also send us an email at news@foxbaltimore.com or chime in your pictures and videos on the Fox 45 News app. Uvalde Elementary School students returned to school today for the first time since the May 24th massacre. They are not going to Robb Elementary School where it happened. Instead, students are spread at schools across the district, and some are opting for virtual learning or private school. Schools have an increased security presence. Still, it's an uncomfortable feeling for some parents and students.
It's scary, and you worry about the security at the schools. Each school, I mean, I'm sure each district has their own safety and security policies, and you just wonder, like, how safe is my child really at their school?
Security upgrades include more officers in schools, additional cameras, and campus monitors. Emotional support dogs are on hand for students as well. 19 students and 2 teachers were killed in that massacre.
Experts say flood maps the federal government uses are outdated because of climate change. Why they could lead to unexpected scenes like this.
How much will filling your tank or heating your home cost this fall and winter? I'm Autrell Nashar with a look at the global factors that could take a toll on your budget.
And a few scattered showers, maybe even a thunderstorm left over as we head on into this evening. If you're going out for dinner, I'm going to let you know how long this unsettled pattern is going to last and if it makes it all the way into the weekend. My Weather Authority forecast.
Energy costs this summer have hit many families hard, from filling up tanks to keeping the air conditioning running during heat waves. And heading into fall and winter, there are some warning signs that energy costs could rise. National correspondent Autrell Nashar takes a look.
For some drivers, this Labor Day weekend was the first road trip they could take without breaking the bank. Gas prices dropping 12 weeks in a row. The national average now sitting at $3.77.
So I'm really happy about the new prices. It's going down a little bit.
But a move by OPEC this week raises questions about future global oil supply, cutting production in October by 100,000 barrels per day amid fears of global recession. Oil supply in the U.S. also called into question in a Wall Street Journal analysis showing the Biden administration has leased fewer acres for drilling at this point in the term than any president in 75 years. The White House pushing back.
There's no lack of acreage or leases for companies to be able to increase production at the moment, and we've called on them to do that.
Meanwhile, here on Capitol Hill, in an effort to increase American energy production, Democratic Senator Joe Manchin is pushing for energy permitting reform, in part by limiting court challenges, often driven by climate concerns, and prioritizing projects that will lower costs for consumers as Americans are in store for an expensive winter.
Right now, we're thinking costs up to $1,100 to heat your home this winter, as compared to about $1,000 last winter.
Mark Wolf, who leads the National Energy Assistance Directors Association, points to high electricity demand during the sweltering summer, pushing up natural gas prices. The U.S. already produces almost all of its own natural gas and exports to other countries. The idea of pulling back exports to boost domestic supply appearing less and less realistic as European allies may have gas from Russia cut off entirely.
The supply interruptions which we're facing are a result of weaponization by Russia of their energy supplies.
Another case of global demand outpacing supply, a recipe for higher energy prices ahead. In Washington, I'm Atrel Nishar reporting.
Flood maps used by the Federal Emergency Management Agency are underestimating risk to communities and may be outdated because of climate change. The issue is highlighted in the recent flooding in Jackson, Mississippi, where more than 150,000 residents in the state capital didn't have safe water to drink, and they still don't know when service will be restored. Major flooding events have also taken place recently in Kentucky and Georgia. FEMA Director Deanne Criswell says current maps focus on river and coastal flooding and can't predict climate-fueled extreme weather and its impacts on cities.
I think the part that's really difficult right now is the fact that our flood maps don't take into account excessive rain that comes in when we're seeing these record rainfalls that are happening.
Well, a 2020 study by the First Street Foundation found maps underestimate the number of homes and businesses in danger by 67%. Heavy rains flooded Rhode Island over Labor Day weekend, and it's expected to keep up today. The city of Cranston could see 2 more inches of rain after a record 11 inches over the weekend. Major roads in the state were closed and several drivers were stranded. Around 30 students at Brown University were evacuated from their dorm because of flooding, and an unoccupied building collapsed on the west end of Providence, Rhode Island. I'll take a look at this video from our Sinclair sister station in Providence. It shows water gushing out of a manhole cover like a geyser.
Wow, and even some flood watches and flood warnings out of that same weather maker around here this morning. We've now reduced things to just a few showers, nothing like what they've been dealing with around Rhode Island. But notice from Jarrettsville up to Stewartstown, and down south to Butler, as well as Cockeysville and Randallstown. We've got some of the yellows, oranges, the reds. That's a potential of a couple of showers left over. Had actually a big round of rain move through earlier on this morning through just prior to noon time. About over 4 inches of rain south of Woodsboro, right there on the Howard County, Frederick County, and Carroll County line. And all these yellows and oranges, anywhere up to about 3 inches of rain here in Baltimore, right around 2 inches of rain today. And that latest weather maker taking the biggest slug of moisture, pushing it east, and again, places where they don't need it, into Rhode Island, as well as the remainder of New England. Then tomorrow, still leftover energy with this, and kind of on the cooler side of our system. So high temperatures may not even get out of the 70s, and it's still lots of clouds. It's also going to be showery as well. You can see that initial slug of rain moving north and east. The humidity is still hanging tough, but eventually the winds will switch a little more westerly and eventually northerly, and that's going to give us some of the cooler air, although that unsettled weather is going to take some time to get out of here. You can see it all the way back down the spine of the Appalachians and into the Mid-South. Behind all of this, it dries out, and boy, do we have a treat on the way for the end of the week. But right now, Mile 1 Tallahassee Cam, you see those bubbling clouds in the background. Wind out of the east-northeast at 10 miles an hour, 81 degrees in the dew point, sopping, steamy, 70 uncomfortable tropical degrees. Where the rain has left latest, temperatures in the 70s north and east of Baltimore. South and west, it breaks the sun, taking us to the 80s. Tomorrow, we get into some of this cooler air that's around Erie, Pennsylvania, Cleveland, all the way down to Pittsburgh. I think our highs probably only stay in the 70s as well for tomorrow afternoon, after low to mid 80s today. Now out in the tropics, there's Danielle, Category 1 hurricane. It looks like this becomes a tropical storm and kind of meanders the North Atlantic next several days. There's Earl, which will make a close approach, I think, to Bermuda, but then eventually as a major hurricane ends up somewhere over the open Atlantic. And then a medium chance of development that's down in the central Atlantic, central eastern Atlantic. And another system that's got a low chance of development just emerging off the African coastline. So lots to watch over the tropics. No surprise that hurricane season peaks around September 10th to September 15th. Now, around here, lots of clouds. There are your spot showers and storms. They go through about 9, 10 o'clock tonight. There still could be a spotty shower almost any time overnight. Could even have a patch or two of fog with temperatures in the 60s to near 70. Tomorrow, a damp kind of feeling day with on and off showers. And you can see a couple of those thunderstorms also trying to roll in from the north and west during the afternoon. Highs in the mid to upper 70s. 81 early shower on Thursday, otherwise turning less humid. Nice day Friday, even Saturday pretty nice, although some spotty showers could move in just in time for Sunday and into Monday as we wrap up the Maryland State Fair.
Jonathan, thank you. Coming up at 5 o'clock, what's a special master and how does that impact the DOJ's investigation? The latest in the legal battle surrounding former President Trump. Dozens of men stand up to make a difference. Why they showed up to school this morning dressed to the nines. Dozens of men gathered to welcome students back to school this morning at the Baltimore Collegiate School for Boys. Mark Clark joined that ceremony and spoke with the principal about the importance of role models.
I put the tie on today for the young men, and again with Principal Wilson here, who's not a stranger to success, but this is actually the first year here in this amazing institution. Tell us about what's going on today.
Yeah, today we have over 100 strong men in suits and ties here to welcome our boys to school. You know, in the light of the tragedy that just happened, we're just so happy to have the support of everyone here today, shaking hands, making friends, and letting people know that we love them.
And you know, this is such a powerful statement. And again, we know why they're here, but then tell us, what's the message we're sending to the young people?
The message to the boys is that we love you, you know, that there's hope for the future, that we have high expectations, and that we expect you to grow up to be a gentleman and a scholar.
I love it. And also, like you mentioned before, the young man who got murdered the other day,
yes.
He actually has ties to this institution.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a timely thing, but we can celebrate him also today.
Yeah, we're definitely celebrating him today in his life. You know, he was a gentleman He's a scholar. He's an athlete. He's a father. He's a 5-month-old son. And so as we welcome these boys today, we still see him. And so we want him to know and his family to know that, we understand what happened and we're here to support and love them.
And the thing is, we're so many times, we see the negative side or we see the negative stories involving our amazing city. This is just another celebration of a positive story. So
yes.
This morning we're glad to be here.
Yes, sometimes you don't see the men. We're here. And so the boys need to know that we're here to support them.
A St. Louis area football team on a losing streak gets some inspiration. Brandon Robinson was born without arms, but that doesn't stop him from playing the sport he loves. With the support of the Riverview Gardens Rams players and coaches, he's been able to grow his skills. He was a backup kicker, but is now shining under the Friday night lights.
People help me with certain stuff like my shoes and, putting my clothes on sometimes, stuff like that. But when it comes to kicking, I am worthy.
Well, with Brandon as their kicker, the Rams were able to pick up their first win in 4 years. Coming up on Fox 45 News at 5 o'clock, parents in Baltimore County afraid for kids' safety at school. Hearing their concerns as a community mourns the loss of a 14-year-old student. Just 30% of students are meeting passing standards. Project Baltimore is looking into what can be done to turn things around. Baltimore residents are worried it's not safe to drink their water. The latest on community impacted by the E. coli contamination and what the city is doing to fix it.
This 14-year-old boy just lost his life after a game. It just don't make no sense.
A Pikesville High School student killed Friday night. Parents in Baltimore County telling us they're now worried about their own kids' safety.
Only 1 out of 3 students is getting passing grades in key subjects. Project Baltimore is looking into the learning loss students have suffered in the Baltimore City school system.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 5.
We're following 3 big stories in a city in crisis. First, A water contamination in Baltimore City now extended to the county. The latest on efforts to distribute clean water and the lingering questions about the city's response.
Mervo high school students are back to school today for the first time since a student was shot and killed at school Friday. New reporting tonight on charges for the teen suspect.
Baltimore's on track to see another 300+ people murdered this year. Tonight, doctors are saying enough is enough to the bloodshed.
This is nuts. This is nuts. The fact that we are doing this many times in this city is just crazy.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Kai Jackson.
And I'm Maxine Stryker. We have team coverage tonight of a city in crisis. Let's begin with Amy Simpson and the latest on the water contamination. Amy?
Yes, Maxine, tonight a boil water advisory continues for thousands of homes and businesses across much of West Baltimore and Southwest Baltimore, as well as Southwest Baltimore County. And there's still no word on how bacteria got into the water supply at a Baltimore fire station and 2 police facilities. Day 2 of water distribution for thousands of people. 3 gallons per household handed out at 3 sites today. Just a day after news broke of West Baltimore's water supply testing positive for contaminants in 3 locations. Here at the Engine 8 fire station and 2 nearby police facilities. Jugs of water arriving an hour late this morning at this distribution site in Southwest Baltimore County.
I'm here to try to get some water.
As the questions continue, from residents being told to boil any faucet water at home in the meantime.
How long is this going to take place? Do we know?
Just after 8:30 last night, Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott finally stepping in front of cameras to address the growing crisis.
On September the 2nd, DPW tested several locations as part of its routine self-testing protocol.
City leadership providing its timeline of events.
Saturday, on the 3rd of September, we were notified of a possible positive test and immediately had this specimen retested for confirmation per emergency protocol.
According to the mayor and DPW leadership, that first routine testing happened Friday, but it wasn't until 3 days later, around 7:45 a.m. yesterday morning, when DPW tweeted out the news of contaminants in the water.
Once DPW received that confirmation, the public was notified.
And despite promises to provide frequent updates, DPW was silent for nearly 9 hours yesterday before announcing an official boil water advisory for most of West and Southwest Baltimore just before 5 p.m. Meanwhile, the questions and critics were growing louder.
They really haven't kept people very well informed. This has been bad leadership, to put it politely.
Political analyst John Deedy describes the early response to this crisis as someone asleep at the wheel.
Feels like the Department of Public Works put the city of Baltimore on hold this weekend.
End of the Labor Day weekend, and I understand that. But this should take precedence over anything.
But for a public health crisis to rear its head over a holiday weekend.
E. coli wasn't on vacation. This is a serious health matter.
Some say it's no excuse.
That's not a good answer. Government is a 24/7 job. The 911 operators were working this weekend.
Now, this morning, I questioned both the mayor's office and the Baltimore City Department of Public Works about the testing timeline and results. I asked the following questions. When did DPW retest water samples after those possible positive test results on Saturday? When did DPW receive those results back? When and how were those results communicated to residents? Was it DPW's tweets on Monday morning? And finally, I asked how they respond to criticism of the city's response, given the magnitude of this public health matter. And so far tonight, 5 p.m. tonight, those questions have not been answered. Reporting live, Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
All right, Amy, thank you. Now, if you drank any of the water, doctors say you should watch out for any possible or common symptoms like stomach cramps, vomiting, diarrhea, or fever. Symptoms usually appear within 2 to 4 days. If you think you have any of these symptoms, you should reach out to your doctor for treatment. And here are some things that you can do without boiling your water if you live in the affected areas. You can wash your clothes, dishes, clean surfaces, and shower with tap water without boiling it. However, pets are not affected by contaminated water in the same way humans are. But if you're concerned, you should give them boiled water. You shouldn't drink or cook with tap water without boiling it first.
You know, this is something that the water is shown to have a higher than safe level. I mean, it should not have this bacteria in it. It would not be safe to drink it. There is a way to get rid of the bacteria, and that's the boil. But it has to really be boiled. It's not heated up for a minute. It's get it to boiling and then let it boil. And that will kill the bacteria and render it safe once it's cooled back down.
Well, that brings us to our question of the day. Did Baltimore city leaders botch the E. coli contamination response? So far, 95% of you who voted say yes. We'd like to hear from you. You can participate by going to our foxbaltimore.com/vote poll.
Today, the Mervo community still in mourning following the tragic loss of a young life. At just 17 years old, Jeremiah Brogdon was gunned down in his high school parking lot just minutes after class let out on Friday. Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor joins us live outside the high school as students made their return today. Rebecca?
Yeah, Maxine, students returned to Merville High School today, but not for classes. Right now, school officials saying the focus needs to be on counseling.
Dark clouds loom over a dark day at Merville High School as grieving students and staff slowly make their way back into the building. The pain is palpable. One woman even crying out, "Are you serious?" Vocal and visibly upset by the return.
They better not open the school up.
It's a recovery week following the death of 17-year-old Jeremiah Brogdon, who was shot and killed in this very parking lot Friday afternoon. According to the school's website, regular routines won't resume until Thursday, with a heavy emphasis on progressive healing, support sessions, and counselors being made available throughout the coming days. Meanwhile,
just trying to wrap my head around it.
Fox 45 is learning more about the victim.
It's been tough.
Jeremiah's football coach, Patrick Nixon, still shaken by the tragedy, describing him as a good kid and exceptional athlete.
We've really been focusing a lot on sticking together. We've been focusing a lot on praying for his family, Jeremiah's family. We've been talking about the importance of just how precious life is.
As far as the gunman, police arresting another 17-year-old who attends a different high school, charging them with first-degree murder and holding them without bond. Just another example of senseless violence taking another life far too soon and leaving a community reeling.
No one deserves what he got and how things happened on Friday afternoon.
The school's also hosting a virtual family and community meeting. It starts at 5:30. You can find a link to it in this story on our website at foxbaltimore.com. Reporting live out of Mervo High School, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Well, despite efforts from city leaders to curb violence, it's been a brutal summer in Baltimore. According to Baltimore police, 101 people were killed from June through August, and 222 shootings occurred. Last year, during this time of the summer, there were 87 homicides. 188 people have been shot. Now, the violence continued with another shooting this morning. Around 11:30, police responded to a scene on East Baltimore Street in Highland Avenue. Police say a man had been shot in both legs. He was taken to a hospital for treatment. Tonight, those who work to save lives of gunshot victims say something needs to change.
Taking care of 600 people, 700 maybe this year shot, is emotionally exhausting. It's taxing, it's discouraging, it's everything you can imagine, but you actually can't imagine if you don't do it.
Surgeon in shock trauma talks about the toll the city's gun violence has on those tasked with saving lives. Now, he'll lead a new initiative to help the city get a grip on violence that's held Baltimore tight for years. It's part of a growing trend of the community stepping up to keep violence down. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost joins us live to explain.
Yeah, guys. So we also know that we're seeing Baltimore is on pace. Some experts say on pace to see some of the most violent years and records ever seen in the city. And this is on trend with what we're seeing in terms of more teens and young people getting involved in crime. And now we're seeing community members turn to their neighbors to try and find some answers. This as we see governing and policymaking not seem to be helping stop the bloodshed. Baltimore's Labor Day winding down with another shooting. A 13-year-old shot multiple times. The police say he is expected to survive. Another family impacted by Baltimore's bloodshed. Just one of more than 500 people in the city this year who have been shot but surviving. The area's premier trauma center, Shock Trauma, announcing a new initiative with the University of Maryland Law School, Med School, and social work programs led by Dr. Thomas Scalia.
I can almost tell you the number of steps because I've had to do it way too many times. This is nuts. This is nuts. The fact that we are doing this many times in this city is just crazy.
But it's not just isolated to Charm City city limits. In Prince George's County, the county executive Angela Also Brooks calling for families to step up.
Juvenile arrests have more than doubled. Armed and dangerous children.
As more and more teens commit crimes.
These kids don't just need a hug, they also need to be held accountable. I know this isn't the popular thing to say, but the truth of the matter is, it's a fair question. Where are their parents? Where are the aunties? Where are the uncles and other family members who are responsible for them?
And it's not just some leaders looking to the families to help turn the page on this violent chapter.
It's not the city's job. That occurs in the family.
Pastor P.M. Smith calling for parents to invest more in their families.
Conflict resolution is first learned in the home.
Mayor Brandon Scott campaigning on the promise of reducing violence.
I will aim to reduce homicides by 15% each year in my term, getting us below 300 homicides in my first year.
But that promise broken. And now he too is turning to the community for answers. But another activist says that is a double-edged sword.
People get up, get out, get involved. You know, stop waiting for somebody to come in and fix the problem. Now, the problem with that is we elected him to fix the problems.
As bullets fly, carjackings and assaults rise, and police investigate, the reality for many remains bleak. I'm scared.
I don't feel safe here at all.
Highlighting the importance of finding a solution to a gun violence problem that's already claimed the lives of nearly 250 people this year in Baltimore City alone.
We're really pretty good at taking care of sick patients, but when they get to the point where they either have a lethal anatomic injury or they come in with their heart no longer beating, we're out of the game. There's nothing we can do to fix that problem. The only fix for that problem is to not have it happen.
Now, the goal of this new center will be to develop education as well as policies in hopes of preventing the violence from happening in the first place, as well as working on the trauma that becomes a result. Live in Baltimore, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Well, what is a special master and how does it impact the DOJ's investigation? The latest in the legal battle surrounding former President Donald Trump.
It was the first day of school for 2 local systems. How they're trying to make sure staffing shortages don't put students at a disadvantage.
Parents in Baltimore County afraid for their children's safety at school, hearing their concerns as the community mourns the loss of a 14-year-old student.
And after a bit of a morning deluge, things calming down this afternoon, although there still are some spot showers, maybe a rumble of thunder if you've got a flight out of BWI. Temperatures gradually falling through the 70s as it stays unsettled into this evening. I'm going to let you know if it's going to be messy again for day 2 of school for a lot of kids. My Weather Authority forecast.
Fox 45 News, winner of 17 2022 Regional Emmy Awards, more than all other Baltimore news stations combined.
Well, new tonight, we're learning the 14-year-old boy shot and killed Friday night in Pikesville, not far from Milford Mill Academy, was a freshman student at the school.
And Fox 45 has just learned his identity. His name is Travis Slaughter. He was killed and another juvenile was injured after the school's football game.
The violence after that game Friday has students and parents rattled. The start of the school year in Baltimore County was marked by tragedy at one Pikesville high school.
I feel like it's just so messed up. It's just so messed up.
Police say Friday night, as the football game came to an end at Milford Mill Academy, a 14-year-old boy was shot and killed around the corner from the high school. Another juvenile was injured.
This 14-year-old boy just lost his life after a game. It's just so, it just don't make no sense. It don't make no sense whatsoever.
Baltimore County Public Schools confirming Tuesday the 14-year-old was a freshman student at Milford Mill.
Not just seeing police just, pressing down on his body, trying to bring him back, and it was a lot of children.
This parent, who doesn't want to be identified, tells us she has 2 students at the high school.
I'm just speechless by everything that happened.
A spokesperson for Baltimore County Schools says this email was sent out Sunday night to parents, informing them of the loss of a student and letting them know counselors and a traumatic loss team would be available to students today.
That could have been my little brother.
He's very young. He had his whole life.
For now, this mother worries about her children's safety as the new school year is just getting underway.
I'm afraid to send my 14-year-old back to school this week coming up.
We asked police for that incident report to see what led up to this shooting. They tell us they are not releasing it at this time.
A check of the weather right now. Look at this weather maker bringing some wet conditions to our area. This is video this morning of the commute just outside of Camden Yard, just coming down a deluge, as Jonathan told us a little earlier. Commuters did have to dodge some downpours. I don't think there was any dodging this. It was just running through it. The rainy weather will be stuck around for most of the morning, but we need to find out what's going to happen from this point on.
Okay, looking live outside Baltimore and Towson now. The rain has tapered off, so what's ahead for tonight? Let's bring in Chief Meteorologist Jonathan Myers now.
Well, better. It can't get much worse than some of that video that we showed you there. It's better than that, but we still do have some unsettled weather. So I wouldn't put your umbrellas away just yet. Okay. So let's get right into things. And you can see some of these showers that are kind of bleeding in from the north right now, all the way up to about Jarrettsville to Stewartstown, PA, down to Cockeysville. You work your way south toward Woodlawn, 695. There are some more showers that are down that way as well. And even trying to edge now toward Baltimore City, getting in the act, too, with another band of rain that's out to our west, that's across the mountains. So expect through the overnight hours, there will be some scattered showers. There's the bad stuff that came through earlier that's moving now off through New England, where they've seen several days of flooding in places like Rhode Island. Around here, again, we're going to get a bit of a break, but it's still going to be clouds and it's still going to be unsettled all the way, in fact, through the day tomorrow likely. Now, in terms of rain totals, take a look here north and west of Cooksville and extreme northwestern portions of Howard County, southern Carroll County, up to 4 inches of rain. Otherwise, a good solid 1 to 3 from Baltimore City. North and west, we did have some flood warnings this morning. And then south and east of the city, we got away with about an inch or so, maybe a little bit less. But we're not done yet. The heaviest rain, again, is moving east, but there's still that energy that's going to hang around as our little system almost kind of stalls out and falls apart almost directly overhead. So the high humidity stays, the clouds stay, and this kind of yellow dotted line and this spinning L, that's that weather maker we've been talking about, going to give us that shower chance tonight and into tomorrow as well. Finally, I think it takes until Thursday, but it will dry out and we'll get a nice treat by then. Right now it's 78, winds out of the east at 13 miles an hour. Toyota East Inner Harbor Skycam, some kind of gray skies, a dew point high. That's our measure of moisture in there at a tropical near 70 degrees. Cooler air east where the rain has ended most recently. Out to the west, some breaks of sun, and we made it into the low 80s. Actually made the low to mid 80s at BWI as well. And even hot down toward Richmond with high humidity, but that is getting shunted east and away. What's coming our way is some of that cooler air in the 70s, north and west toward Cleveland, Pittsburgh. That comes for us tomorrow with the still unsettled weather. In the tropics, several things we're watching, but nothing immediate for land. This is going to be heading out into the open Atlantic. That's Danielle. Also, Earl is going to be potentially a major hurricane, but again, it's mainly a fish storm, could brush by Bermuda over the next several days. And there's this medium chance of development that's in the central Atlantic. That's one to watch. And a low chance of development that's now emerging its way off the African coastline. So overnight tonight, there are your showers, maybe a rumble of thunder. Through about 9, 10 o'clock, there could be a spot shower almost any time overnight. And I think we do it all over again, at least with the spotty showers and storms in the afternoon. For tomorrow, 7-day forecast, much better by later on Thursday. Friday looks good. Saturday, too. Low humidity sets up, turns more unsettled by Sunday.
2 more school systems welcome students back today while struggling to fill teaching positions. How Carroll and Harford counties are trying to make sure students are set up for success. And just 30% of students are meeting standards. Project Baltimore is looking into what can be done to turn around test scores for students struggling with learning loss. And a special master is reviewing the documents seized in the Mar-a-Lago raid, how their decisions could impact the FBI investigation and the fate of former President Trump. The body of a missing teacher from Memphis was found this morning. Police say Eliza Fletcher's remains were found in an empty apartment. She had been abducted on Friday. Memphis police chief today calling Fletcher's death tragic, but said the department has found and charged a suspect in her death.
While the outcome of this investigation is not what we hoped for, we are nonetheless pleased to remove this dangerous predator off the streets of Memphis.
The 38-year-old suspect faces first-degree murder charges and was arraigned on kidnapping and tampering charges this morning. A federal judge has granted former President Donald Trump's request to appoint a special master to review the thousands of documents seized in the FBI search of Mar-a-Lago. National correspondent Kayla Gaskins has more on what this means going forward.
The files seized during an unprecedented search of former President Trump's home, now subject to the scrutiny of a special master at Trump's request.
Many people do believe this was pretextual or political. This will help reassure them to some degree.
In her ruling, a federal judge authorized the special master to review the documents for personal items, as well as material subject to claims of attorney-client and/or executive privilege.
I can't imagine how that vacuuming up of documents did not bring in legitimately attorney-client privileged material.
Executive privilege is an area in which absolutely no court has ever found like circumstances to qualify.
On Monday, the former president said it, quote, takes courage and guts to fight a totally corrupt Department of Justice and the FBI, and that they're being pushed to do the wrong thing by many sinister outside sources. While the ruling puts a pause on the DOJ's criminal review of the documents until likely after the midterm elections, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence is still allowed to continue their national security risk assessment.
So the Intelligence Committee and members of Congress, at least, should have a good sense, I would think, in the next few months about what exactly was contained in those documents in Mar-a-Lago.
Now, the Department of Justice must decide whether to appeal or comply, saying in a statement that the United States is examining the opinion and will consider appropriate next steps in the ongoing litigation. If the DOJ decides not to appeal, they and Trump's legal team have until September 9th to submit a joint filing that includes a list of proposed special master candidates. In Washington, I'm Kayla Gaskins.
Shots are being administered across the county. What the new and improved boosters mean in the fight against COVID. From teachers to bus drivers, schools are suffering from staffing shortages. A look into how 2 districts welcomed kids back to class today are filling the gaps. And Baltimore students are suffering from severe learning loss. Project Baltimore is looking into what the city school system is doing to improve the alarming test scores in the city. A breaking news update now at 5:30. Thanks so much for staying with us. I'm Maxine Stryker.
And I'm Kai Jackson. A homicide investigation is underway in West Baltimore following a house fire this morning. Now, that fire was reported just after 7:30 in the area of North Monroe Street and Riggs Avenue. That's near Sandtown, Winchester. The fire department says when the fire was put out, they found the body of an adult woman. Here's what the assistant chief says.
Units gained entrance into the dwelling, came upon a fire in a bedroom. It was there that they extinguished the fire that was contained to the one room and found a victim within the room. This victim was deceased at the time.
The cause of death is still pending.
New information tonight following a shooting last week in South Baltimore, which rattled residents in a nearby school. The shooting happening inside the Light Street Animal Hospital. Police say the suspect, 66-year-old Bobby Trillo from Baltimore, got into an argument with his brother, who is a veterinarian at that hospital. They accuse him of shooting him in the leg. He later barricaded himself and surrendered after a 3-hour standoff. He is facing second-degree attempted murder. You can be the first to know about breaking news by signing up for News on the Go. Just go to FOX Baltimore.com, click on Mobile Alert Sign Up underneath the station tab.
FOX45 is your back-to-school headquarters. Students in Harford and Cecil counties return to class today.
We have team coverage. Olivia Dance with more on how staffing shortages could impact learning.
First, Project Baltimore's Chris Papps reports on just how much learning loss the pandemic caused in the region.
It was a decision every school system had to face back in 2021.
There are groups of young people who desperately need support they can only receive in person.
When to reopen classrooms following the COVID shutdowns.
Setting arbitrary dates, making threats, holding press conferences is not the way that we're going to get to in-person learning.
The question sparked heated debates month after month over what was best for our kids. Health and safety versus potential learning loss.
What kind of future are we creating for our children?
We don't want anyone to be forced back into buildings before it's safe.
It's been more than a year since every school system in Maryland returned to in-person learning. By spring 2022, the state had resumed normal standardized testing, and now we're seeing the results.
These are all abysmal numbers.
Kathy Schlager is a state delegate and former teacher.
The length of time that the Maryland public schools were shuttered was a problem.
This past spring, Maryland students were tested in math, English, and science as part of MCAP, the Maryland Comprehensive Assessment Program. Math and English results will not be released until early 2023. The state's saying it needs more time to set the standards for scoring. But we can see how students did in science, a subject that has become increasingly important through STEM initiatives. And across the state, numbers are down. In 5th grade, 70% of students tested did not score proficient. That means only 30% did, a slight drop from 2018, before the pandemic hit. When you look at individual school systems, Howard, Anne Arundel, Carroll, Harford, and Baltimore counties all saw a drop in science scores. But Baltimore City, despite a major decrease in attendance during the pandemic, was the only district in our area to improve, with 8.7% of 5th graders testing proficient in science. Even with the improvement from previous years, Baltimore City still had, by far, the lowest scores in the state.
Very sad and heartbreaking that more than 90% of those students are not proficient in science. We really do have a crisis before us with education in Baltimore City Public Schools.
8th grade science scores showed similar results. Statewide, 35% of students scored proficient, down from 2018. And again, Baltimore City had the lowest scores in the state, but was also the only district in our area to see an improvement, with 12% of 8th graders proficient in science.
For me, after we take this Springs test,
That's that new baseline for me.
Maryland State Superintendent Mohammed Chaudhry at a recent school board meeting downplayed the results, saying spring 2022 scores should not be the new baseline because the last school year was largely impacted by COVID.
We had a horrible Omicron December and January. We still had quarantines. We still had masking and other things. The hope this year is some back to that feeling of normalcy.
We have a real problem here in Maryland.
But Schlega says these science results should not be overlooked. If about 70% of 5th and 8th graders throughout all of Maryland are not proficient in science, Schlega says we need to reassess what we're doing in the classroom.
I'm sure that the educational bureaucrats in Annapolis will say this is why we need more money in public education. But we know that just putting money into a program is not going to make a change. We need to make sure that it is a quality program and that students' educational needs are being met.
I'm Chris Pabst, and this is Project Baltimore.
2 local school systems welcome students back to class today, but staffing shortages could make the year difficult. Olivia Dan says details on kids heading back to school in Carroll County.
It's the first day of classes here at East Middle School. Students started at 8 this morning, and the district says its focus this year is making sure all positions are filled. Like so many other districts, Carroll County schools are also being impacted by the national teacher shortage. As of last Friday, they still had 8 classroom vacancies, but I'm told they have someone focusing only on employee recruitment. They're also dealing with a bus driver shortage, but the district tells me they have a plan in place to ensure every student will be picked up today. I spoke with the president of the Board of Education about the vacancies.
I hope we keep filling the spots. We don't see it as an issue in school today. We're close enough to full to keep the students, smaller classes and all teachers in classes.
The district says every student will have a teacher or permanent sub today for the first day. For now, reporting in Westminster, I'm Olivia Dance, Fox 45 News.
While every school system is facing teacher shortages, Harford County says it's in a good place compared to most. Leaders say the county welcomed kids back to class short just 10 teachers. The school system is bringing in more than 300 new employees this year, part of the effort to make sure students have teachers and the support staff they need to succeed.
What we have in place is a lot more support for new teachers, a lot more training. I mean, we know that with more people coming in with conditional certification, that the support they get during the year just has to be ongoing, consistent.
System leaders say while there will be challenges bringing in so many new employees, they are confident they'll still be able to provide high-quality classes for students.
A power outage shut down Hebbville Elementary School today. At 9:30, the power went out in the school and the surrounding neighborhood. The Baltimore City School System says a power transformer fire caused that outage.
Fox 45 News is your back-to-school headquarters, and we are committed to investigating any problems your kids may run into this year. Call our news tip line at 410-467-5595. You can also send us an email, news@foxbaltimore.com, or chime in your pictures and videos on the Fox 45 News app. After seeing record crime last month, Prince George's County is moving ahead with a curfew for teens. Brad Bell with our Sinclair sister station in D.C. spoke with the county executive on this move.
Fed up with spiking juvenile crime and after the deadliest month in Prince George's County history, County Executive Angela Alsobrooks is defending and explaining her decision to order police to enforce the county's existing youth curfew law, something she had to do with her own teenage daughter.
She heard from all of her friends who are big mad at me about the curfew, believing that I am aiming at them. And what I'm really trying to do is to engage their parents and engage the rest of this community.
The county code says it shall be unlawful for any person under the age of 17 to be out in public from 11:59 p.m. Friday and Saturday nights until 5 a.m. and from 10 p.m. until 5 a.m. on weeknights. If a police officer reasonably believes that a juvenile is in violation, the officer can demand name, address, phone number, parent contact, and issue a warning. For a second offense, a juvenile can be taken into custody. Parents and businesses who harbor children after hours face fines of $50, $100 for the second offense, and $250 for the third and any subsequent offenses. Enforcement begins Friday.
It's about all of us really having a laser-like focus on our children and whatever is necessary to keep them safe.
Prince Georgians we speak to are generally supportive.
Honestly, I don't see a problem with it. These young kids are actually been getting out of control. That way it ensures more parental controls, because it seems like that's missing.
That's what I want everyone to understand. This has to do with our children and what responsibility the people in this community have to keep those kids safe. It's not about the police. The police can't do it. They can't raise our children.
The county last enforced a curfew countywide in 1995. A year and a half ago, it was used in the National Harbor development to end an outburst of teen crime and fights. In Prince George's County, Brad Bell, Fox 45 News.
Now, Baltimore City does have a curfew for young people, but the city doesn't enforce it. The commissioner says they're not sure how to enforce that law, especially with a lack of officers.
New boosters at a pharmacy near you this week. What's different about them and who should get them? I'm Liz Bonus. We share the latest research just ahead.
And a batch of heavy rain this morning, but that did not prevent us from hitting the low to mid 80s this afternoon. A cooler day tomorrow, but I'll let you know if that's also going to come with more rain. It's up in my Weather Authority forecast.
Maryland is reporting more than 1,100 new COVID infections today and just under 500 people hospitalized with the virus. The positivity rate is now just under 10.5%, and that's a slight improvement from a month ago when the positivity rate was over 13%. The newest COVID boosters are being distributed across the country. Liz Bonus has more on the latest efforts to protect Americans from the dangerous COVID variants.
Hey there, everybody. If you do want a booster shot, these new bivalent boosters now are replacing the shots that we have been giving for the third or fourth dose. They contain the original vaccine and the newer variants circulating now, known as BA4 and BA5. Those variants in most people do appear to be mild.
It wasn't terrible, but it was definitely knocked me down for a couple days.
But they still are leading to nearly 500 deaths a day in the United States, mostly in those with no prior immunity due to vaccination or previous infection.
Case rates had reached a peak of around 25%, and now we're seeing case rates around 15 to 18%, depending on the institution.
The hope, Dr. Thomas Lamar of Ohio's Christ Hospital told me, is that these newer boosters can lower those case rates by reducing infection risk just in time for a potential fall surge.
And how clinically that's going to shake out, we're not sure yet. We'll see. But I think it's an attempt really to adapt to what we're seeing now.
Dr. Lamar's hospital team already has the shots available.
Yeah, we've already had vaccine delivered. We ordered it. We ordered the maximum amount that we could get.
You too can likely get the shots within days at an area pharmacy. The new boosters are recommended for those ages 12 and up, 2 months after your last vaccine dose. The other question, of course, is how long will this protection last? Dr. Lamar says he does expect, as it wanes, new guidance will come out for a 5th and 6th shot. I'm medical reporter Liz Bonus. Now back to you.
Heavy rains flood Rhode Island over Labor Day weekend, and it's expected to keep up today. The city of Cranston could see up to 2 inches of rain after a record 11 inches over the weekend. Major roads in that state were closed, and several drivers were stranded yesterday. Now take a look at this manhole. This is in Providence. Heavy rains there, also too much for the city's storm system. The city is bracing for more rain. To check on that right now, here's Chief Meteorologist Jonathan Myers with the latest on the rain and our weather.
Yeah,
Jonathan.
And part and parcel of that same weather maker that's been giving us some of the rain, nothing like what they've seen up there in Rhode Island. But it looks like a couple more showers still going to be plaguing that afternoon and evening commute. The first trip home of the shortened work week. You see there from Elk Ridge all the way north up to west in North Baltimore. And then this line, it's kind of broken and scattered. Moves its way all the way up to Indian Hills, Bee Tree, Walker, Bradenbaugh, and then through the state line and off into Pennsylvania. There's another little round that's west of that toward Hagerstown into the mountains, Martinsburg, West Virginia. And it's not out of the question once again that we could see a few of these showers and maybe even a rumble of thunder through the evening and maybe even some showers overnight. The biggest rain, again, this is the initial wave, if you will. That's what gave us all the nasty conditions this morning. That continues to move to the east and away. But unfortunately, we're going to stay in this kind of unsettled pattern now for about the next 24 to 36 hours. In terms of rain totals, big winner here, 4.4 inches of rain right along the Howard County, Carroll County, and Frederick County lines, and then a solid 1 to 3 inches basically from Baltimore City north and west, south and east. That's where you kind of got away from it a little bit, down under an inch across Anne Arundel County and the lower eastern shore. But nonetheless, the heaviest rain moving east, but another little round of patchy showers and maybe a thunderstorm on the way for tomorrow with this latest weather maker as it gradually unravels and works on still some humidity overnight. The good news is this is eventually going to kind of fall apart and continue to move to the east, so it should take rain with it, and drier conditions should begin to set up, especially as we head into Thursday. That's my thinking now. 76 degrees, winds out of the east at 10 miles an hour right now. Lots of gray skies on the Toyota Eastern Harbor Skycam. That dew point near 70 degrees. It means it's sticky, kind of steamy outside. We have had some of those showers that have dropped us from that high of 84 here in Baltimore now to 76. So where the rain has come down or where the rain is just moving out, temperatures in the 70s. Where it hasn't hit at this point, we're in the low to mid 80s, even upper 80s to the south where they had a sunnier day down toward Richmond. That cooler weather, though, up toward Cleveland and Pittsburgh, that's going to be ours likely for tomorrow. Highs only probably reaching the 70s. Now out in the tropics, there's Danielle. Kind of take a loop-to-loop track here. Any case, it's going to end up over the open Atlantic. There's also Earl, could become a Category 3 hurricane, but that should just scrape by likely Bermuda and then out into the open ocean. And another couple areas that we're watching for potential development, maybe a brief tropical depression coming out of this, medium chance of development in the central Atlantic, and a low chance of development that's now moving its way off of the African coastline. Around here, A lot of clouds there. Those showers, maybe a rumble of thunder through about 7:45, 8 o'clock. Even overnight clouds and a stray shower or two. And then for tomorrow, we kind of rinse and repeat. Notice during the afternoon, not in the morning now, but in the afternoon, some spotty showers and maybe a rumble of thunder there. About 3:45 to about 4 or 5 o'clock for the PM commute. That then diminishes by sunset. Should move out on Thursday. Look at that, 81 Thursday, lower humidity. And for the final weekend of the Maryland State Fair, I know I'm going to be there on Sunday to shake some hands. Friday, Saturday, nice and dry. Could see some spotty showers coming by later on Sunday.
All right, Jonathan, thank you. Now, coming up at 6 o'clock on Fox 45, students are back at Mervo High School, but not for class. How a community is putting kids first after a very difficult week. And while John Harbaugh said week 1 is full of unknowns, one of his starters picked the Ravens to win the Super Bowl. Find out more on Sports Unlimited.
There is only one thing guaranteed in an NFL season. That would be unknowns. And it will all play out in 17 games where one outcome can make or break a season when trying to reach the new season playoffs. Also, what a team looks like in week 1 will most likely be night and day come week 18. With that being said, the Ravens pick back up week 1 preps for the Jets tomorrow. Sunday will bring us the first real look at this team. They may be down starters due to injuries still, but none of these big names got preseason reps, and it's time to get some answers, maybe questions, what 2022 could bring to the Ravens.
I think the guys understand the magnitude of the challenge every single week. The openers are always different. You know, the opener is the opener, and you never really know where you're at until you play the first real game. You get a sense in the preseason a little bit, but until you line up against somebody for real, you don't really know where you're at. And then you kind of go from there. Then all of a sudden, things are going fast.
Ravens outside linebacker Justin Houston has a different tune. Whether he truly believes it week 1 or not, he's determined to make his season prediction for the Ravens true in his 12th NFL season, which is Super Bowl champs.
We're going to get that ring this year. I'm tired of hoping and wishing we're going to get it. I'm going to speak it to existence. That means everything. That's why we're here. That's why you work together as one team, as one goal. The common goal is to get that ring. That's why I'm here still playing, still chasing that ring. I haven't had the opportunity. I came close, but I think this year, by far, this will be my best year and our best year as a team to get that ring.
The Ravens' first depth chart is out, and the Orioles in must-win mode after getting swept in yesterday's doubleheader, falling 4.5 back in the final wildcard chase to Toronto. That's tonight when Sports Unlimited continues.
All right, let's take a look at that weekend forecast in detail. For getaways on Friday, hey, looks nice. Sunshine, temperature's going to be in the 80s, low humidity. Saturday actually pretty good too, although a couple of clouds in the afternoon. And then Sunday, notice these showers on the computer model starting to try to push our way. So we're going to have to include, at least on Sunday afternoon, some spot PM showers if you're going out to the State Fair. Otherwise, dry for the remainder of the weekend. Highs in the low to mid 80s. And if you're going to be taking it out on the water Saturday on the bay, looks like some light seas there and some nice weather, partly to mostly sunny skies and highs in the 70s.
All right, Jonathan, thank you. Coming up on Fox 45 News at 6 o'clock, Baltimore's contaminated water crisis enters its third day, where those impacted can find relief. Plus, 4 simple words could have saved someone's life. Now, one man is using his own experience to give others a reason to keep pushing.
E. coli wasn't on vacation. This is a serious health matter.
City leaders racing to respond as E. coli courses through Baltimore's water supply. The latest on those impacted and what kind of relief could be on the way. Emotions still fresh following Friday's deadly shooting outside of Mervo High School. A difficult day for students today as they prepare to return to the classroom. And new information on the victim in Friday night shooting in Baltimore County. Reaction from stunned parents and students after a student's life cut short just after a high school football game.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 6.
We're following 2 big stories tonight. New information regarding the suspect and victim in Friday's deadly shooting at Mervo High School and the fight over clean water access in Baltimore, how the city is trying to adjust its response. Good evening, I'm Maxine Stryker. It's been nearly 36 hours since West and Southwest Baltimore residents were first alerted of E. coli contamination in their water. And city leaders are ramping up efforts to help after a sluggish response over Labor Day. We've also just learned Baltimore County is now handing out water at a few locations. Amy Simpson looks into the response so far.
Tonight, there's still no word on how bacteria got into the water supply at a West Baltimore fire station and 2 nearby police facilities. Day 2 of water distribution for thousands of people. 3 gallons per household handed out at 3 sites today. Just a day after news broke of West Baltimore's water supply testing positive for contaminants in 3 locations. Here at the Engine 8 fire station and 2 nearby police facilities. Jugs of water arriving an hour late this morning at this distribution site in Southwest Baltimore County.
I'm here to try to get some water.
As the questions continue, from residents being told to boil any faucet water at home in the meantime.
How long is this going to take place? Do we know?
Just after 8:30 last night, Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott finally stepping in front of cameras to address the growing crisis.
On September the 2nd, DPW tested several locations as part of its routine self-testing protocol.
City leadership providing its timeline of events.
Saturday, on the 3rd of September, we were notified of a possible positive test and immediately had this specimen retested for confirmation per emergency protocol.
According to the mayor and DPW leadership, that first routine testing happened Friday, but it wasn't until 3 days later, around 7:45 a.m. yesterday morning, when DPW tweeted out the news of contaminants in the water.
Once DPW received that confirmation, the public was notified.
And despite promises to provide frequent updates, DPW was silent for nearly 9 hours yesterday before announcing an official boil water advisory for most of West and Southwest Baltimore just before 5 p.m. Meanwhile, the questions and critics were growing louder.
They really haven't kept people very well informed. This has been bad leadership, to put it politely.
Political analyst John Deedy describes the early response to this crisis as someone asleep at the wheel.
Feels like the Department of Public Works put the city of Baltimore on hold this weekend.
End of the Labor Day weekend, and I understand that. But this should take precedence over anything.
But for a public health crisis to rear its head over a holiday weekend.
E. coli wasn't on vacation. This is a serious health matter.
Some say it's no excuse.
That's not a good answer. Government is a 24/7 job. The 911 operators were working this weekend.
Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
Amy also questioned the mayor and DPW about the city's response, asking when they retested the water and when those results came in. She also pushed them on when residents were first made aware and how the city is responding to criticism of their communication. Fox 45 is yet to receive a response. City leaders do have some recommendations if you live in those impacted areas. If you're going to cook with or drink water, boiling is necessary to kill the bacteria. Health experts recommend a healthy boil, so just warming up the water, it will not be enough. It is okay to wash clothes or shower with tap water without boiling. Pets are also less likely to be infected, but if you're concerned, you can still boil their water as well. And common E. coli symptoms, they include stomach cramps, vomiting, diarrhea, or fever. These usually pop up within 2 to 4 days. If you feel you have any of these symptoms and may have been exposed, reach out to your doctor for treatment. That brings us now to our question of the day. Did Baltimore city leaders possibly botch the initial E. coli contamination response? We want to hear from you. You can participate in our poll by going to foxbaltimore.com/vote. Elsewhere in a city in crisis, students at Mervo High School will be returning to class tomorrow, less than a week after a student was killed in the school's parking lot during dismissal. Each grade will return with staggered start times. Some students were actually on campus today, though, but not for school. Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor explains today's message after a difficult week for all involved.
Yes, students returned to Mervo High School today, but not for classes. Right now, school officials say the focus needs to be on counseling. Dark clouds loom over a dark day at Mervo High School as grieving students and staff slowly make their way back into the building. The pain is palpable, one woman even crying out.
Are you serious?
vocal and visibly upset by the return. They better not open the school up. It's a recovery week following the death of 17-year-old Jeremiah Brogdon, who was shot and killed in this very parking lot Friday afternoon. According to the school's website, regular routines won't resume until Thursday, with a heavy emphasis on progressive healing, support sessions, and counselors being made available throughout the coming days. Meanwhile,
just trying to wrap our head around it.
Fox 45 is learning more about the victim.
It's been tough.
Jeremiah's football coach, Patrick Nixon, still shaken by the tragedy, describing him as a good kid and exceptional athlete.
We've really been focusing a lot on sticking together. We've been focusing a lot on praying for his family, Jeremiah's family. We've been talking about the importance of just how precious life is.
As far as the gunman, police arresting another 17-year-old who attends a different high school, charging them with first-degree murder and holding them without bond. Just another example of senseless violence taking another life far too soon and leaving a community reeling.
No one deserves what he got and how things happened on Friday afternoon.
The school's also hosting a virtual family and community meeting this evening. A link to it can be found in this story on our website at foxbaltimore.com. Reporting out of Merville High School, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
New information tonight in that deadly shooting near Milford Mill Friday night in Baltimore County. The victim has been identified as 14-year-old Travis Slaughter, a freshman at Milford Mill Academy. He was shot and killed near Liberty Road and Washington Avenue, not far from the school. The violence came right after Friday night's football game and has other students and parents on high alert tonight.
This 14-year-old boy just lost his life after a game. It's just it just don't make no sense. It don't make no sense whatsoever. That could have been my little brother. He's very young. He had his whole life.
Fox 45 asked police for the incident report to see what led up to this shooting. They tell us they are not releasing it at this time.
Now, a Fox 45 News alert in 3, 2, 1.
A homicide investigation is underway after a house fire in West Baltimore. That fire was reported just after 7:30 in the area of North Monroe Street and Riggs Avenue. That's near the Sandtown-Winchester neighborhood. Fire officials say they found the body of an adult woman once the fire was put out. The woman's cause of death is still pending, but foul play has not been ruled out. Stay with Fox 45 on air and online for the latest on this developing story. Maxine?
Five Maryland school systems started their school year today, including Harford and Carroll counties in our area. Carroll County is no stranger to staffing shortages, much like many other school systems across Maryland. Leaders say they're still facing a shortage of about 8 teachers, but they are happy with the progress made so far.
I hope we keep filling the spots. We don't see it as an issue in school today. We're close enough to full to keep the students, smaller classes and all teachers in classes.
School leaders say every student had a teacher or long-term sub today. They are hosting job fairs, increasing their advertising and talking with students who have expressed interest in becoming teachers in order to fill those last vacancies. Fox 45 News is your back-to-school headquarters, and we're committed to investigating any problems your kids may run into this year, from teacher shortages to a lack of bus drivers. You can call our news tip line, send us an email, or chime in your pictures and videos on the Fox 45 News app. Here's a look at today's top trending stories. Number 1, e-cigarette company Juul will pay out a $440 million settlement over allegations the company markets its product to people under 18. This follows a 2-year investigation by 33 states and Puerto Rico. As part of the agreement, Juul now has to restrict some of its marketing. The company still faces almost a dozen lawsuits from other states. Number 2, online sports betting is one step closer to a reality in Maryland. Governor Hogan says Marylanders have waited long enough, and today the Maryland Wagering Commission officially opened the application period, meaning full legalization could come by the end of the year. There's a 45-day application period and then a review process of up to 45 days. Maryland leaders estimate legal online sports betting could generate more than $10 million in tax revenue over the first 6 months if approved. And number 3, a huge game tonight for the Orioles' playoff hopes. Let's go live right now to Camden Yards as first pitch is just about an hour away. The Orioles taking on the Toronto Blue Jays, the team directly ahead of them in the wild card standings. After 2 losses in yesterday's doubleheader, the O's look to snap a 3-game losing streak tonight.
President Biden has a new name for his political opponents as he and former President Trump hit the campaign trail. Who has an advantage in the midterm fight for control of Congress? I'm Scott Thuman in Washington with a look.
And the rain and thunderstorms from this morning moving out, but still maybe a stray shower for the O's game this evening. I'm going to let you know how long we hold on to the unsettled weather. My Weather Authority forecast.
Fox 45 News, winner of 17 2022 Regional Emmy Awards, more than all other Baltimore news stations combined.
As senators and representatives return to Capitol Hill today, it's a critical time in election season. Midterm races are heating up, and tonight, Chief Political Correspondent Scott Thuman looks at how President Biden and former President Trump are hoping to give their parties a leg up.
Ladies and gentlemen, President Joe Biden.
On stage, in the limelight, and under pressure, President Biden using his bully pulpit to frame his political enemies as dangerous.
It's clear which way the new MAGA Republicans are. They're extreme, and democracy is really at stake.
And giving them new labels.
The Trumpies. These MAGA Republicans in Congress are coming for your Social Security as well.
The noticeable pivot for Biden began last month, calling them semi-fascist and calling on voters to counter them this November. Trump, too, on the trail.
Republicans in the MAGA movement are not the ones trying to undermine our democracy. We are the ones trying to save our democracy.
Politico's midterm forecast documents the urgency. The Senate had leaned Republican. Now they call it a toss-up, while still saying it's likely Republicans will take the House. So have Biden, Trump, and others distanced themselves from the middle at times to appease the fringes of their party, and by design, ramped up the rhetoric.
Let him go.
The president this weekend name-calling a heckler.
No, don't let him go. Look, everybody's entitled to be an idiot.
Though still well short of some past Trump reactions.
Like to punch him in the face, I'll tell you.
And while they're both taking shots at the other side, seldom do they call out their own radical members for escalating matters via the most extreme actions or damaging demonstrations. In Washington, I'm Scott Thuman.
Governor Larry Hogan is endorsing Republican candidate for Comptroller Barry Glassman, the current Harford County executive. He was a state delegate and state senator before winning his current seat. Hogan has declined to endorse others within his party, including candidate for Governor Dan Cox and a candidate for Attorney General. Some stunning scenes in Rhode Island tonight. Flooding from heavy storms last night stretching into this afternoon. Around 30 students at Brown University were actually forced to leave their dorms while a vacant building collapsed in Providence. And this extreme flooding comes as FEMA faces backlash for outdated flood maps highlighted by the recent destruction in Jackson, Mississippi. More than 150,000 residents still don't know when service will be restored. FEMA's director says the maps focus on coastal flooding and can't necessarily predict extreme weather in other areas fueled by climate change.
Yeah, some tragic scenes there. And in fact, had a little bit of flooding concerns this morning with some heavy rain coming through. Right now, in fact, take a look. We're trying to get that game underway at Oriole Park. And on the upper corner of your screen there, you can see on the Toyota Eastern Harbor Skycam, the rain's coming down pretty good. Mile 1 Townsend Cam fairly dry, although rain has come through. And this is all part and parcel of our latest weather maker. You can see there on the HD radar, smack dab over downtown Baltimore. Basically, right over Oriole Park, we've got one shower here, and it's coming down at a pretty good clip. Then Parkville, east of Towson, up to Jarrettsville, and then right along the Susquehanna River, and then you work your way southbound toward just west of Green Haven, and as you head into northwestern Anne Arundel County, not too far from BWI, there's some showers there too. And we put a national mode of the radar on, and you can see the entire system here spinning about. Off to our east, that's a portion of heavy rain that impacted us earlier this morning, but you can see this is really leaving behind some scattered energy out to our west. So when the sun comes out, even as briefly as it did today, which actually did bring us up to 84 degrees, yes, it can start sparking showers and even a couple of thunderstorms. And we'll get into a couple of patches of that type of regime next about day or so. Currently, the latest weather maker, again, shoving moisture our way, the heaviest of which was this morning. That moves east, and then more of the at least spotty showers and maybe a rumble of thunder for tomorrow as this thing kind of diffuses and kind of unravels, if you will, over us. There's that latest weather maker with the dotted yellow line and the spinning L, the storm system. Again, it's kind of located right over the Delmarva right now. And eventually, as this gradually ambles east, we'll start seeing some somewhat cooler air feed in for tomorrow. And also, eventually, that's going to drag in drier air, too. But it probably takes until Thursday to get here. Right now, as I mentioned, over Oriole Park, it's coming down 75 degrees. Hopefully, that should begin to taper a little bit towards sunset. That 75 accompanied by rain over at BWI. Winds out of the east-northeast at 9 miles an hour. Dew point's now at 69. When the dew point or the measure of moisture in the air is near 70 degrees, it's uncomfortable. It's sticky. And we've had that kind of pea soup air today. Temperatures falling into the 70s where the rain has been kind of taking over. And then temperatures in the 80s west. We were in the 80s here in Baltimore earlier, but again, with some of that rain backing in, that shaped things down a bit. So be careful. Could have some wet spots on the roads. Heading home this evening on the late commute. And then look at the cooler numbers up toward northern Ohio into western Pennsylvania. That's those highs in the 70s that come for tomorrow. Now out in the tropics, Category 1 Hurricane Danielle kind of does a loop-to-loop over the northern Atlantic, but It doesn't really look to affect more than just the fish. And then also Earl, Category 1 hurricane soon. It's still a tropical storm. Could become a major hurricane as it makes a brush by Bermuda over the next several days. And then there's another couple of areas of potential development that we're watching. One's a medium chance of development over the central Atlantic, and another one that's coming off of the western coast of Africa here. You see that yellow. You can see there's plenty of the colorful cloud tops with showers and storms emerging off the West African coastline. That also has some chance in the next several days of at least some gradual development. Now around here, future scans showing the showers, the thunderstorms gradually tapering off by about 9, 10 o'clock tonight, but there could still be a stray shower overnight into early tomorrow morning with clouds. It's going to be kind of muggy, temperatures near 70. Tomorrow, more of a damp day with high temperatures, I think, getting into the 70s. And notice in the afternoon, again, it's kind of rinse repeat with more scattered showers, maybe a rumble by about 3:45 through about 5 o'clock in the Beltway. And then by about 7 to 9 p.m., that gradually tapers off again. And finally, the means to an end. I think Thursday, it will dry out. Lots of clouds, scattered showers around tonight and evening thunderstorm 68. We're going to go with 77. Lots of clouds, damp day tomorrow, scattered showers, and afternoon thunderstorm possible too. Your exclusive 10-day forecast going to take you all the way well into next week in just a couple of minutes.
Learning how to save someone's life could soon take less than an hour. How one state social media pilot program is changing the conversation around emergency response. One fateful night forever changed a man's perspective on life, and all it took was 4 words. Tonight, Jim Spywalk from our Sinclair sister station in Utah takes us through this incredible journey.
My life since that event has been all passion.
Joe Tuiana saved a total stranger from jumping off an I-15 overpass, and since, his life has taken a whole new direction.
It opened my eyes to really feeling for others.
When Joe saved that man's life, he did so by saying the same 4 words over and over again. Simply, I Love You, Bro, which is now the name of his initiative that will provide affordable access to mental health and suicide prevention resources specifically for dads.
And to be a partner with dads to help them grow and constantly fight to get better, to be better.
When we first talked with Joe back in February, we reported that there's no playbook to follow on how to save a person's life, and that caught the state's attention. They believe everyone has the power to prevent suicide, so they developed a playbook, and Joe helped create it.
Normal people, why not give them the tools so that they can know what to look for, the signs, what to say, where to turn to.
The playbook has 10 courses, all taught entirely on Instagram, that take about 5 minutes each, so people can be helped before they get to the point of standing on an overpass.
I don't think everybody needs that experience to save a life, you know. And so to be a part of the Live on Utah playbook creation and the I Love You, Bro project, the future is a little bit more bright.
Exclusive 10-day forecast, 77 degrees for tomorrow. A lot like today, except minus the downpours in the morning. Some scattered showers in the afternoon. Could see a rumble of thunder there. 81. Start with maybe a morning shower here on Thursday, then some sunshine, 83, and sunshine on Friday. Saturday looks good, too, with low humidity, 84. Spotty PM showers arriving again, probably to wrap up the state fair on Sunday, though. It's about a 30% chance, and a better chance of some rain into early next week before it dries out, warms up by next Wednesday, next Thursday, and next Friday.
Well, finally tonight, the end of summer is fast approaching, so some of our friends are enjoying the final few weeks. Check this out. 14-year-old elephant Samson is just hanging out at the zoo, splashing around the pool to keep cool. He's one of 4 elephants at the Maryland Zoo, and he has lived at the zoo his entire life. Samson is a living piece of history, the only elephant, in fact, born at the zoo in its more than 140-year history. That's all for Fox 45 News at 6. Family Feud is next. We'll see you again tonight at 10. Have a great night.